So my name is Jojo, and I'm gonna train you on doing supported lipid bilayer binding experiments. And we're gonna start off with preparing all these PDMS blocks and everything, all these details that will eventually come back together. So let me wear gloves. So I just want to show you the ingredients that we're going to use, and then we'll take all those things and go to Kramer Lab. Just a note for future, all these things that we're doing in Kramer Lab, we can eventually do in our lab as well, but the problem has been really we don't have the space right now to get all that equipment and where we would put them. So, but just letting you know, in the future you might be involved in purchasing these new equipment, and so that you can do everything in here and you never will need to go to Kramer Lab, just to increase the efficiency. But we still need their expertise. So here we have the silicone elastomer kit, alright, and since I have the Jovi paper, all these details, the name and the catalog numbers, the companies and everything, all those details are included in that Excel sheet that is attached to it. So, but basically what we have is this silicone elastomer base, so this is basically the monomer, and then we have the cross-linker, and we will mix them 10:1 ratio. So for every 10 grams of the base, we will use 1 gram of this cross-linker or curing agent, as it says. Alright, but because we have a lot of surface to cover, I actually put 55 grams of the base, and I put 5.5 grams of the curing agent. Alright, and basically what I do is, I don't have it here, but basically I use a weighing boat, and then I put this silicone wafer that has these micro patterns on them, okay? And you don't really need to bend your head, because now you're probably looking at the ground rather than here. So it just looks straight, normal. So yeah, this is the silicone wafer with the micro patterns, alright? So basically I'm gonna take this and put it in a weigh boat, and then this mixture of the PDMS monomer and curing agent, then I will pour it into that weighing boat that has the silicone wafer. So what I'm trying to achieve is basically creating this PDMS block that is on top in here, and the dimensions are about 2 centimeters this direction, so the width, well, in this direction, and then 3 centimeters in this direction, and the height is about 0.5 centimeter. So in order to achieve that 0.5 centimeter, I've gone through different amounts of the base and curing agent, and come to see that 55 grams of this, 5.5 grams of this, gives the perfect thickness for this. Alright, so we're gonna take these and we're gonna go to Kramer Lab. Now it's blinking. I don't know if it was blinking before. Did you press in between?
No, yeah. I turned it off at the...
Right after I just finished?
No. When I was coming through the tunnel, so we probably missed that. I clicked it, though.
Alright, let me just say briefly and then...
Yeah.
Alright, so what we're gonna do first is... Alright, it's recording. What we're gonna do first is weigh 55 grams of the base and 5.5 grams of the curing agent. Alright, once we mix, we're gonna use maybe like a pipette tip or whatever to make sure the both ingredients are mixed well. But during this process, bubbles are gonna form. So for that purpose, we're gonna take that weighing boat and we're gonna put it inside this crystallizing dish. And when the vacuum forms, all these bubbles will come out of the solution, because we don't want any bubbles to be trapped inside. Alright, and that's gonna go about for an hour. And once all those bubbles are gone, then we're gonna have a weigh boat with the silicone wafer with the micro patterns, and then we're just gonna pour in that that mixture of PDMS, and then we're gonna put it in the oven at a temperature between 50 and 60 degrees, and let it go for about 2 days. All right, you don't need to, just let it go. All right, so now let's go and wet it. And as you can see, you know, they're doing a lot of this, so they have multiple elastomer kits. I just like using our own because, you know, if you're doing a lot of experiments, that's a lot of PDMS. So to be fair, we bought our own. All right, so the weighing boats are here. All right, we're gonna use the large ones. Let's go to. Okay, so 0 right now. Alright, as I said, we're going to add 55 grams of this silicone elastomer base. And just like, almost like glycerol, it's pretty dense. Okay, I'll just crush this. I'm just gonna get a pipette tip, so just. And you can use other tools as well, but I'm just using a pipette tip to get rid of some of the excess. I want to be as accurate as I can. So right now it's about 56. So just it says 55.03, so that's good. Just leave it at that. Alright, so I'm just gonna zero it again, so that now I can add my 5.5 grams of the curing agent. So I just mix it just in case. Alright, and with this one you just want to be as slow as possible. Make sure we don't go over that. You don't want to have too much or more than the ratio, 10-to-1 ratio, because then your PDMS might become more brittle instead of being soft, so that you can manipulate it as you want. Okay, so we're done here. Let's just leave it here for a second, then get rid of this.
cap real quick. I'm sorry.
And again, you can use another tool if you wanted to, but I will just use this to mix it together. Now, one thing that I forgot that you should probably do before doing this is actually cut the corners of this, because then you can actually put it inside that dish. Otherwise, as it is right now, it won't fit. So I will cut it after I mix it, but it's easier before.
And don't forget to put it under put aluminum foil under it.
Okay, yeah, just in case it leaks or something. It shouldn't be the case because normally what I do, so when you turn on the pump, you know, the bubbles start coming out, all the bubbles at once. So if you don't stop the pump, then it will overflow. But what I normally do is I turn on the pump, wait until the bubbles reach almost the top, then turn it off, let those bubbles come down, and once they come down, I can turn it back on and then just let it go to make sure all the remaining bubbles come out later. All right. And this part, it's really subjective, but I do it for at least a few minutes, but I would say up to like 5 minutes to make sure it's well mixed. And you know, some ideas that I had in mind for these kind of thing, instead of doing it like this, perhaps we can get some kind of mixer slowly to mix everything. But
Is there any consistency change that you experience, or does it stay about the same until you bake it?
consistency changes, meaning like if I mix it more or less? Or?
Yeah, or like do you experience any differences as you're mixing with the pipette tip?
No, not really. You cannot tell the difference because you're adding only 1/10 of a volume of the curing agent, which has a lower density than the base, but it doesn't change much. But once it starts cross-linking, you know, then it hardens and it will become like a block that you see before.
How many different stages do you expect to be able to get out of that amount of PDMS?
What do you mean different stages?
Like how many different blocks, wafers?
What we have here, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11. So we'll get 11 patterns. And, you know, I think that's much better than what they're doing here right now. Like here, they build houses like this and put it on top of individual patterns, so they're actually making blocks one at a time, versus, you know, we're doing it 11 at a time, so this saves a lot of time. Now, one advantage that they have is that they don't need to cut it afterwards. Basically, they created a housing that's exactly the size that they want, but we're going to have a huge block with 11 patterns on top, so after it's baked, we actually need to take it out and then, you know, cut it with the razor blade. So, but again, I think it's better to have 11 blocks at one time rather than making it one at a time. And, you know, in the future, you can perhaps make different patterns or different designs where you can fit more than 11 patterns, because when we are doing the supported lipid bilayer binding experiment, we're really looking at a single line that really looks at the fluorescence. So you don't really need that width of the channel for looking at the binding. You really need very small area. So you can actually squish them together, make the channel width lower so that you can fit perhaps more patterns.
Is there a reason that you haven't done that already?
Well, what we were trying to do is just replicate exactly what they had in here, and we didn't know at that time if the number of molecules or the space that the lipid bilayer would have would make any difference, so we just wanted to replicate exactly what they have here. But, you know, as I went along and learned more, I see that, you know, that's not an issue, so you can make that space as small as possible. So actually, they have one paper where they have this chip that has areas where bilayer can form in like small squares, and you know they could fit a lot of squares in there. So you know you can think of very different patterns that you can design in here, but it's not as simple as thinking of the design, because then you would need to get a training in the nanofabrication facility to be able to do this. So, you know, that would take at least, I would say, 2 to 3 months just to get all the required documentation for you to be able to work there, because it's a clean room. So there's a lot of procedures and SOPs that you need to follow to be able to work there. It's not a facility that you can just go walk into. But that's where I did this one, and I did get the training. So if you want it, you can get that training. He actually might ask you to take that training. And you can see as I'm mixing, bubbles are forming. So. I can come closer to it. Just so. Want to see the bubbles? I know this is not as exciting, but
This is exactly what I want to be doing.
honestly, so for this part, the way that I was envisioning this, having this solution maybe like in a small beaker, and then having like a mixer that comes on the top, and then just mix it slowly for a few minutes, and then I can take that and put it into the vacuum. So that would be ideal, I think, but. So much money and there's just so much time, so this works just fine. And this part is actually important because, you know, once you pour it in, you don't want some parts to be mixed well and some other parts not mixed well. Then you will have inconsistency within that huge block. So you would have some blocks, PDMS blocks, that would be softer than the other ones. And in that case, you would be losing some of the blocks because they're too soft or something. So you just want to make sure, you know, an extra minute or two, it's not going to hurt you. So in all honesty, I would say, you know, 5 minutes of mixing like this, it should be good. And again, you will see people doing different things, but, you know, I've been doing it like this, so it's better to keep everything the same, just so that there's no inconsistencies later on. Just trying to limit the variables in your equation. Grab the scissors. Okay. So I'm just going to cut the corners, but you should do this before so that while you're cutting, some particles would fall in, so that's not desirable. Good?
Looks so good.
Alright, so I normally take this crystallizing dish outside so that it's easier to put the thing inside. The mixture. And as Alexis suggested, I'm going to put a aluminum foil. So I'll just go like this. And this is just in case something leaks. Otherwise, you know, you can imagine so many people doing this and everybody leaked, there would be so much PDMS there. I don't really know this. So basically what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to be as quick as I can. I'm just going to twist this a little bit so that I can put it inside.
Okay.
Let's see if this is sufficient width. Okay, I think it's going to work. I need to cut it a little bit more. That's why you should cut it before and not after. This is terrible. I just wonder if this one is a smaller one that I normally use. Let me try the other one real quick. They look about the same, but slightly different here. So I'll just try to bring it here.
So it doesn't have to be perfectly flat in there?
We can adjust that in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be perfectly flat, as long as, you know, it doesn't overflow and everything, that's fine. I was also thinking a beaker would be much better, but this would be just fine for right now. I'll probably use like a paper towel to balance it from the bottom. So I normally look at on the both four corners and just to make sure, you know, it's not tilted way too much on one side, because then it will definitely leak. So what I see is that it's more towards this direction, so I'm just gonna put a paper towel right there. Alright, I think it's gonna be good. So, can you see?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So there's some space in there, so I will close this now. Okay. And I'll connect this. Make sure this is right in the middle. Right now it's sliding, but once I turn on the vacuum, it will, you know, sit down very well and wouldn't move. Okay. It's hard to see through this, but you know, once I turn the vacuum pump on, the bubbles will start coming, and basically I will stop it by using this valve here. So right now it's off. Even if I started the vacuum, which I do right now, it's not getting any air out of here because this valve is down. Once I turn it on, then it will start taking the air out. Alright?
Okay.
And once I turn that on, then you will start seeing bubbles. So basically the surface is almost gonna seem like white, right? And I cannot take this more up because then it's gonna start beeping. But you can come here and, well, right now it's probably looking at this, so yeah. So I'm gonna turn it on. And I'm gonna let those bubbles rise up until it reaches the limit of the wayboard. You can see it right now, the bubbles are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let it go a little bit more. So I'm basically looking at this corner because this is the lowest corner, and I will stop it right before. So that's good.
All right, that's about a millimeter or two from the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
And basically what I do, I let these bubbles now go down for about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes. And once those bubbles come up, this would be the majority of the bubbles, right? And after those go down, then I will turn it back on for another 45 minutes, and those remaining bubbles will start coming out of the solution, and we'll be good to go. All right. So the protocol right now says let it sit like this for about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes, and after that we'll turn this valve back up so that it can create a vacuum again. All right. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. All right. So what we're gonna do right now, the bubbles are pretty much done. So if you look at it, it should be completely clear, no bubbles, no anything. All right. So just gonna let that go for a second while I'm preparing this. Okay. So I have my silicone wafer with the micro patterns. Okay. Again, you want to be gentle, so take this out.
And you can touch the surface of it with your glove?
I try not to.
Okay.
Because you think that the gloves are clean, but there's always some residues on top. And so as you can see, I've touched a little bit there. I will try to clean that with ethanol actually real quick. It shouldn't be a problem because as long as it's not on the pattern, it should be fine. Okay? But again, I need something that is...
Ethanol?
No. And I don't like these scheme wires either because the ones that they get creates a lot of dust, and the ones that we use, they don't create too much dust. So, and with microfluidics, you want to avoid any dust possible. How much dust there is now. But anyway, I will use the air here. So you have nitrogen gas and you have the air. For air, all you need to do is turn this on. For the nitrogen, you want to make sure that this is open. So the valve right now it's closed. So righty tighty, lefty loosey. Okay. So right now it's on. Also, they have two connections, to the left, to the right, and based on the cylinder that you're using, that's where it's pointing. All right, so right now the valve to the right is open, so you're using this cylinder. If this one was the other direction, that means you're using this cylinder.
Is there any specific PSI you're looking for?
At this point, as long as it's around 50, it's fine, but you will realize that, as this gets low on gas, that will start going down, and if it is all the way down, obviously you don't have gas, but no, the pressure, in our case, it's not important, but, this one is for the overall pressure. So normally when it's full, it's within that region. Okay, so it's slightly above 2,000. All right, and here this is just the pressure on the line. Okay, that goes there, and that one is about 50 psi. So that's fine too. Okay, so right now we make sure that it's open, so lefty loosey, and make sure that this is pointing towards the cylinder that we're using. All right, and here here you can change this pressure. So now it's adjusting to higher pressure, but again, it's not very critical, but you don't want to make it way too high. So as long as you keep it around 50, it should be fine. Okay, so that's open, and we can use this nitrogen right now. Now, I just wanted to demonstrate you that, but I'm actually not going to use the nitrogen. I'm just going to use the air for right now. But the more practice you get, the more you will learn, so I just wanted to make sure. Alright, so this is the air. I just want to make sure that I hold it securely so it doesn't fall, so I don't want to break it. I normally hold it like this. Now I want to make sure that the wafer is in the middle. Okay. So right now I think it's in the middle. And again, remember, once I start pouring, I'm actually going to lean on the sides a little bit to make sure the bottom is straight. And you will see it will actually kind of move a little bit. So right now it's perfect. Okay. Alright, now we'll take my solution here, the PDMS mix. To turn it off, what I do is I take this valve down. Alright, so now there is no vacuum. I'm going to turn this off. And to open it, you slowly take this out. And again, right now inside is vacuum, so you don't want to open it too quickly. You know, things might just come out. So you let the air go in slowly. You'll hear the hissing sound. Alright, we're good. I'll open this, just sliding it. Upside down. I'm gonna take the entire thing just to make it easier to take it out. Just from a dirt or something, I see a particle. Perfect. And that could be either when I was cutting or maybe from this unit itself. Gonna wash my hands with ethanol so those dust particles okay. And for this one, you really need to be stable, because once I'm pouring it onto the silicone wafer, you don't want to create bubbles, so you want a steady flow. So I would be sitting here. So normally this is what I do. Take this all the way down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna twist it and then put it in there. But it's a little tough just because I need to balance this too. Okay. I'm pressing it down right now. I'm gonna try to see if I can find different way boats that has maybe slightly larger base so that the wafer can sit comfortably without coming up like that. The white weight boats that we used to have, those were perfect, but since they started with these blue ones, see right now it's sitting well. And if you look at it from top, you will actually see some dust particles within the solution. So I will just use like a pipette to get rid of those. Not completely, just put them off the side so they're not on top of the device so that it will block anything. So I just use the effective tip to push them to the side, which we will not use to the blank spots. And this part is boring.
How completely do you let it drain?
Maybe another 10-15 seconds. It's hard to tell. Initially you see the stream is like really, huge stream, but then eventually you get to something like this. So I just try to do as much as I can. So I'm gonna use the plate. So that would be probably impossible to see with the GoPro, but and actually this is ideal when you have the lighting right on top. It was actually really difficult to see this in the lab just because I didn't have light from top. So here it's perfect to see all the dust particles. So forget the camera, but just come right on top and you will see the dust.
Mm-hmm.
Can you?
Mm-hmm.
Basically what I do is push them to the sides. But again, being careful not to create bubbles.
Or to touch the wafer, I'm assuming.
Well, touching wafer is alright, I guess.
Oh, is it?
As long as you're not touching the patterns itself.
Mm-hmm.
And these dust particles can be either from the environment or the PDMS solution itself. You might want to check, I heard that there is a paper on describing how to further clean the PDMS solution that you're using. I think it uses some kind of solvent or whatever, and it creates two different phases, and the clean PDMS basically goes to the bottom. And then you just get rid of the solvent
top
on
phase.
top phase, and then whatever is remaining is really clean PDMS phase.
That's nice too, because it catches all the dust on top, right?
And any other chemicals that there might be. Basically, what I don't like is having a dust particle right on top of this fraction, all right? Which is where I'm gonna form the supported lipid bilayers, and under the microscope, this is the region I'm going to look at, all right? So these straight lines, all right? So as long as you don't have dust there, I think it's fine. Sometimes what happens is if there's a dust, then I'm looking through the microscope, it can create some shadow, so it will not give me a crisp image that I want. So as long as you don't have dust in that middle region, you're good, okay? All right. And again, this is not the part that interacts with the supported lipid bilayer. So once you create that PDMS is just making the walls and the ceiling of the channel. But what is interacting with the bilayer is really the glass at the very bottom, and those would be extremely clean. You will see how we do the cleaning process. So it's this dust that we see here. It's not that important as long as it's not in the middle of the channel. That would not that would create shadows in the microscope. All right, so this is good. All right, so this is about 55. That's good. I'm going to take this out just to make it easier. So I'm going to make sure this is straight. play with this as well. That is great. About 2 days. But as you can tell, so one thing that I'm not happy with is these weight loads. We need something that's more flat at the bottom. So maybe we can find alternatives. I'm not sure, but something to think about. So let's put this back.
All right.
That's it.
It's blinking right now, right?